Welcome to the Build with Boundaries podcast. My name is Mahnaz, and this podcast is for mums who want to carve out time so that you can work in ways that work for you, your life, your family, and your business. So today we are on episode 22, and we're discussing how we can modernise the mum role. So, why has the mum role not been modernised as much as everything else in our world? Everything's evolved, right? The world is ever changing too. And the world we live in now is very different to what it was even 20 years ago. Women work and they have a bigger voice than ever before. There are much more female role models in all aspects and different areas of life, whether that's education, jobs, or different sectors. But there's still something missing. We can all be mums and bring our children up and have a career, but there just seems to be something that isn't quite super connective. And I think this is a discussion that we need to be more aware of, even within our own families, and then obviously sharing that with our circle of female friends and other mums, women that we know, um, business or otherwise, and just really opening this discussion up. And I want to start with a question. What's expected of us? This is a really powerful question. And the more I've thought about this question, I've come to the conclusion that there are two key things that are affecting this. There's external influences and there's also internal. And both of them feel like they can be adding unnecessary pressure, pressure that's creating resistance for growth. And that's both as a person and as a business owner. So, do we actually feel pressured by one of these more than the other? Is it that external pressures are much more for us than internal? Or is it the other way around? Is it that internal pressures are greater? Because we could be putting more pressure on ourselves, or it could be the other people around us that are making us feel pressurized. And I think in both scenarios, this is something that we can work on. And I think it's not about figuring out which it is, or I think it's acknowledging, understanding, and accepting that, and then understanding that we actually have some level of control there. And what do I mean by this? Well, when we are pressured, we could have pressures that are based on cultural or society norms, and all the things that are going on around can then affect us as our families, almost like your family culture becomes um, stems from this, stems from what we thought in our past, what we maybe had expectations as we were growing up, and all these things will be inherent in us and to some extent, and then the cultural and more society pressures can then add to that because we sort of create our own family culture, don't we? And when we do that, we're bringing along pressures and the feeling of maybe guilt and all these things because of simply that word that I started with, expectations, what's expected of us. And I think it's really worthwhile sort of talking about this topic, both with our family and then outside our family too. But what can we really do just now? If we understand that one of these pressures is actually affecting us more, well, if it is external, we can certainly think about like trying to focus in and zone in on really where they're coming from. Is it a particular person? Is it a particular place that we go to where we feel that pressure? Where is it that we are sensing that? And who is it from? Is it always the same person? And if it allows us, that depends obviously what kind of relationship we have, we can make a choice of stepping back. I know this is not possible for every relationship or people that we surround ourselves with. So we have to understand the ones that we can allow ourselves to let go of. Because if those things are not helping us, and in fact they may be hindering, coming in our way, and sort of making us play small, then we need to really understand how that's affecting us and if that is truly what we want in our life. And if we're not able to remove that pressure, then we can also learn to accept it in a different way, because sometimes we can just feel really like things are affecting us and almost triggering us. And we need to start noticing that, because there's a reason for that trigger, and it's obviously something that's internal, it's bringing up. And that can be really helpful for us to reflect on and really understand, try and understand where that's coming from and why we're feeling that way. Do we stop and actually ask ourselves that question? Why am I feeling like this? And just try, and if you journal or if you do any other things to try and help you to resolve, then that would be a really great exercise to zone in on why that's happening and what's maybe underlying that. And when you figure that out, you might actually be letting go of it, because you can then accept and almost give yourself permission that that does not need to affect you in that way anymore. And if anything happens in the future, you are more aware of how you react, and you're able to resist that temptation of getting full blown stressed and really triggered and overwhelmed and just really reactive. So rather than being reactive, going back and just thinking this through and then allowing ourselves to be prepared in a way for that, and understanding that people outside, like people who are around us, even if they might be close, they will have a different perspective, and it's okay for them to have a different perspective. We are never going to be able to make them agree with what our viewpoint is, but what we can let go of is this feeling that we are trapped and that we have to make people see our point of view, because in the same way that they won't see ours, we won't see theirs, and we need to just accept that and let that go. And if the pressure that you're feeling is also somewhat internal, which might be because you're feeling triggered anyway, that again just goes back to, like, we can actually do something about that, because it's ourselves we're dealing with. And if we want to let go of things that have happened in our past, or beliefs we have, maybe things that we have believed and they are not really true, but we feel that pressure because we constantly have that worrying in our mind, and consciously or subconsciously. So understanding what's important for us and being able to set our own expectations. So taking this back to what's expected of us, saying, well, I decide how would that feel, and how empowering would that feel to take that back and ask ourselves the question, what are we expecting of ourselves? And being able to choose, being confident enough and courageous enough to know that you can make your own rules up. And when you allow yourself to accept that, then other people around you will, over time, even if it takes some time, they will learn to accept things. But when we have this sort of resistance all the time, there's something inside us, and something that can be getting triggered by other people or just by things that are happening. And we're not really living to the potential that we should be living. As mums in business, we should be able to create the rules that we want to live with. We help our children and we we create rules for them as they're growing up. We are always ever changing those rules as they grow up. Things change. Why can we not do that for ourselves? And shouldn't we be doing that for ourselves? Is that not, again, thinking to, we're being kind to other people, we're being accepting of the fact that things change, yet we are holding on to something that perhaps no longer serves us, and in some ways is actually holding us back. So I hope this episode's been helpful, and I would love to know if you found it helpful and what's come up for you. Feel free to comment below if you're watching on YouTube, and if not, then contact me on my website. It would be great to know if this has hit a nerve, or if it's something that you've been thinking about, and how you can free yourself of this. And also, I've got an invitation for you to access my free resource, 3 Sneaky Traps to Avoid as Business Mums. And these are things that you can learn from. And again, if you want to take this deeper, is to understand what's going on for you, and be able to see that and not make those same mistakes. So I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will see you next time.